In the boardroom, silence held the air like a weight. The only sound was the soft, rhythmic hum of the projector. A dozen executives sat motionless, pens frozen above their notepads, while the interpreter's steady, rehearsed voice translated the discussion. It was formal, practiced, and just a bit off-key. Then came the sudden interruption. The sharp voice of the CEO sliced through the translator's words like a cold blade. "She said they'll consider the proposal," the interpreter announced. But someone else in the room disagreed. From near the far wall, a janitor, mid-30s, Caucasian, eyes tired from long nights and sleeves rolled up on a faded blue shirt, paused with his mop barely half a meter from the ground. He tilted his head slightly, listening more intently than anyone else in the room. With a calm, even voice, he said, "That's not what he said." The room seemed to stiffen. "They said they would accept," he continued, "but only if we correct the specification error." All heads turned. The interpreter's face drained of color. Even the CEO went quiet for the first time that morning. Before we dive further, tell us where you're tuning in from, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one. Let's begin. Standing near the conference table in a crisp, form-fitting suit was Rachel Whitmore, age 35, Vice President of International Development. Her reputation was sharp, her style sharper. She narrowed her eyes at the janitor. "Excuse me," she said icily. "And who are you to interrupt this meeting?" The translator looked offended, clutching his notes like a lifeline. A few of the executives exchanged awkward glances. One or two snickered quietly. But Adam Barrett, the janitor, didn't flinch. His tone remained polite and composed. "Apologies, ma'am. I didn't mean to interrupt." But he didn't say they'd consider the proposal. He said they'd accept it if we address the product specs. Laughter rippled through the room. A younger executive leaned forward, grinning. "Come on, you're just here to clean the floors. Let the professionals handle the deals." But then, something unexpected happened. The visiting delegate, a man in his early 50s from their Shanghai branch, turned to Adam and addressed him directly in Mandarin. The interpreter froze, unsure of how to proceed. Without hesitation, Adam answered, in fluent, effortless Chinese. His tone was measured, respectful, and completely natural. The boardroom fell dead silent once more. When Adam translated the man's words back into English, all eyes were locked on him. According to the delegate, Adam's honesty and attentiveness had earned his respect. "I prefer to speak with people who truly listen," he had said. The man stood, reached out, and shook Adam's hand with a warm smile. "Good work," he said in accented English, gripping Adam's hand firmly. Rachel blinked, speechless. "You speak Mandarin?" Adam gave a slight nod. "Lived overseas. Another life ago." The meeting resumed, but from that moment on, Adam wasn't just the janitor in the room. Every time a subtle misinterpretation arose, he calmly offered an accurate phrase. Slowly, the tension eased. Laughter returned. And the $10 million deal, once on the brink of collapse, was saved. When the meeting finally ended and the room emptied, Rachel lingered at the door, still stunned. "You just saved a deal we've been building for 6 months, she said softly. Adam leaned against his mop, offering a small smile. "No, you saved the deal. I just cleared up a misunderstanding." She looked at him, unsure whether to laugh or say thank you. "What's your name again?" "Adam Barrett, night janitor." As she walked off, her heels clicking against the marble floor, Rachel Whitmore found herself wondering something she hadn't in years. Maybe not everyone beneath her was meant to stay there. The next morning, the sky above Denver glowed golden through the glass walls of the downtown high-rise. But Adam Barrett moved like a shadow through the building's lobby. His boots were still damp from last night's storm. The mop bucket squeaked softly over the polished tile as he pushed it toward the elevators. Around him, employees buzzed with murmurs. "Did you hear?" one intern whispered. "Some janitor saved the company yesterday." "He was speaking Mandarin, right?" another asked, sounding impressed. Adam caught every word. He just kept moving. He'd learned long ago, attention fades. People forget. Quietly, he signed in, grabbed his cleaning cart, and headed toward the executive floor. That place always smelled different. like polished mahogany and expensive decisions. But today, something hung in the air. Anticipation. Rachel Whitmore was already in her glass office, silhouetted against the skyline. She noticed him in the reflection. "Mr. Barrett," she called, her voice softer than the day before. "Could you step in for a minute?" Adam paused mid-step. "Yes, ma'am." He parked the cart, removed his cap, and stepped inside. Her desk was buried in documents, but her eyes never left him. "You said you worked abroad," she started, tapping a pen against her notepad. "Where exactly?" He hesitated. "Beijing. I was with the U.S. Army's Translator Corps for 7 years. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Army?" "Yes, ma'am," he said with a respectful nod. "Languages were my specialty. Mandarin, Russian, some Pashto. But when my wife passed, I left the service. Needed something stable, something close to my daughter." His voice quieted at the mention. The words lingered in the room like sacred air. For the first time, Rachel didn't see a janitor. She saw a father carrying grief like armor. "How old is she?" Rachel asked gently. "Her name's Lily." His tone softened as he spoke her name. "Bright kid, smarter than I deserve. Says she's gonna be an engineer. Wants to build robots so her dad doesn't have to mop floors anymore." A slight smile tugged at Rachel's lips. "Sounds like she takes after you." Adam chuckled, shaking his head. "No, she takes after her mother. Brave, stubborn, never backed down from anything." Rachel stared at him a moment longer, something unfamiliar flickering in her expression, curiosity. Compassion. "You know, you could have told someone about your background, Adam. We've got a global operations team. They'd have a place for someone like you." He glanced down at his scuffed boots. "No one ever asked." A hush settled in the office. Outside, the hum of the city seemed distant, almost peaceful. Finally, Rachel spoke again. "You do realize the client specifically asked for you to be at today's follow-up, right?" Adam blinked. "Me?" She nodded. "Called this morning. Said, I trust that man with the mop more than your translator." There was a trace of amusement in her voice. "You've made quite the impression." Adam Barrett gave a modest shrug, his tone light. "Guess honesty still counts for something in some places." Later that day, the conference room filled up once again. Same delegation. Same senior executives. But the atmosphere had shifted. This time, the translator was nowhere in sight. Instead, Adam stood near the end of the table in a clean, freshly ironed button-up shirt someone from Rachel's team had discreetly left on his locker in the janitor's room. The CO sat at the head of the table, composed, focused. Yet every so often, Rachel Whitmore's eyes would flicker in Adam's direction. She didn't know why she kept doing it. Maybe because it was the first time someone had spoken with pure honesty and expected nothing in return. That kind of integrity had a strange, unsettling power, and it had shaken something inside her. The meeting began. Adam translated flawlessly, bridging not only languages but egos, cultural nuances, and unspoken tension. His delivery was respectful and precise. Across the table, nods of approval grew more frequent. The delegates seemed impressed. Then came an unexpected turn. The eldest of the Chinese delegates leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and spoke in calm Mandarin. "Your company is strong, but its heart comes from him." He motioned directly at Adam. No one else in the room understood, but Adam translated the words faithfully, his voice steady and clear. Those words hit Rachel harder than she expected. They weren't meant for her, but they reached her just the same. When the meeting concluded, the delegation rose to shake hands. But when they came to Adam, they gave a respectful bow. "You are a good man," the senior delegate said in broken English. "Your truth made this possible." After the guests had left, the conference room erupted with applause. The executives cheered and clapped one another on the back. A sense of triumph pulsed through the air. But Rachel's eyes stayed fixed on Adam. When the noise faded, she approached him quietly. "That was a $50 million agreement you just helped secure," she said in a low voice. "Do you realize what that means?" Adam gave a humble smile. I suppose it means you're going to be very busy, ma'am. She folded her arms, watching him carefully. Why are you still doing this? Why still mop floors when you could be doing anything else? Adam glanced down at his calloused hands, still wrapped around the mop handle. His voice lowered. Because I needed time to figure out who I was without her. Rachel tilted her head slightly. My wife, he added softly. We built everything together. Our home, our plans, our life. When she passed, I didn't care about promotions or recognition. I just wanted to be somewhere quiet. Somewhere I could hear my daughter laugh when I came home. Rachel had no response. She was a woman who lived for strategy, deadlines, and results. But this man reminded her that some things in life carried a weight she had never truly shouldered. Adam looked up again, his eyes gentler now. You know, he said with a faint grin, the hardest part isn't losing someone. It's learning to live in a way they'd be proud of. Rachel felt her throat tighten. You've done more than that, Mr. Barrett, she murmured. He looked at her, puzzled. You reminded me of something I'd forgotten, she said. That leadership isn't about power. It's about people. Adam nodded respectfully, clearly ready to return to his duties. But before he could step away, she stopped him. Take tomorrow off, she said suddenly. He blinked. Are you sure? There's still the lobby floors. She cut him off with a rare, faint smile. Let us take care of the floors, just this once. Adam chuckled. Careful, ma. You might start a revolt. As he left the room, Rachel watched him go. His posture was modest, but there was something quietly powerful in the way he carried himself. For the first time in her career, Rachel wondered how many other Adams she had walked past without ever truly seeing them. That evening, Adam returned to his modest apartment in the suburbs. As soon as he walked through the door, a small figure hurled herself into his arms, backpack swinging wildly. Dad, you're early. He hugged her tight, grinning. Miracle of the century, huh? Emily tilted her head, studying his face. Something good happen at work? He brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear and smiled. Yes, sweet pea. Something really good. Later, they sat by the window eating leftover macaroni and cheese as the sun dipped low behind the rooftops. Emily leaned against his shoulder, whispering, You smell like floor wax again. He laughed, warm and unbothered. That's the smell of hard work, kiddo. But inside, he felt it, something had shifted. A spark had come back. And while he didn't know what tomorrow would bring for the first time in years, he wasn't afraid to find out. Across town, in a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows, Rachel Whitmore stood quietly with a glass of wine in hand, her eyes on the skyline. She wasn't thinking about the deal. Not about the numbers or the boardroom politics. She was thinking about a janitor who corrected her translator and, somehow, rewired the way she saw everything. The following week at Whitmore Dynamics was unlike any other. The usual clatter of high heels on tile was now accompanied by laughter in the glass corridors. Even Rachel's sharp stilettos seemed less intimidating. Word of the janitor who spoke fluent Mandarin and salvaged a multi-million-dollar partnership spread fast. And while the office buzzed with stories, Adam Barrett quietly went about his routine, just as he always had. He moved from one conference room to another like nothing had changed. But it had. Every polite nod from a manager. Every quick smile from someone who used to ignore him. All of it felt smooth. That morning, Rachel stood at her office window, looking out at the city she once believed she had conquered. Her phone buzzed, 3 missed calls from global partners, one from her father, founder of the company. His voicemail was blunt as ever. Now you're finally leading like a Whitmore. Took you long enough. She should have felt pride. But all she could think about was Adam's quiet voice. Would you have listened? There was something deeply humbling in that question, something louder than any applause in the boardroom. Later that day, she found Adam downstairs, near the company daycare. He was on his knees, scrubbing crayon marks from the wall and softly humming to himself. Next to him sat a little girl with blonde curls, drawing intently with sidewalk chalk on a sheet of paper. Daddy, look, she exclaimed, holding up her drawing. This one's you. Adam laughed. Wow, you even got the mop bucket right. I must be famous. The girl giggled. And this one's your boss. She looks mean, doesn't she? Rachel froze. That's his daughter. Adam turned, startled to see her there. His face flushed. Emily, he said gently, this is Miss Whitmore. We don't talk like that. Rachel smiled faintly, lowering herself to eye level with the child. I've been called worse, she said quietly. But it's a pretty good drawing. Emily looked at her with curiosity. You're not mad? Not at all, Rachel said, genuinely smiling for the first time all week. But maybe next time, draw me with a smile. Emily laughed and nodded. All right, it's a deal. Adam scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. Apologies, ma'am. She sometimes comes here after school. I didn't have anyone to watch her today. Rachel looked at him, really looked at him, and slowly shook her head. Don't apologize. She's always welcome here. Even she seemed surprised by her own words. They hadn't been planned, but somehow, they felt right. 2 days later, the boardroom was full once again, this time for the official signing ceremony with the Beijing delegation. Cameras flashed, executives lined up in tailored suits, their ties tightened, smiles rehearsed. And at the far end of the room, Adam Barrett stood silently, dressed neatly in a crisp company-issued uniform. Just outside the double doors, his daughter Emily waited patiently with a juice pouch in her hand, swinging her legs as she sat. The head delegate noticed him immediately and beamed. Ah, the honest man, he said warmly, gripping Adam's hands. Come, sit with us. Adam blinked, caught off guard. Sir, I'm just the... You're the reason we are here, the delegate said with a knowing smile. No deal without you. You belong at this table. Every eye turned toward Rachel. She hesitated for just a second, then nodded once. He's right, Adam. Please, have a seat. The room seemed to shift in that moment. A janitor, once invisible, a background figure mopping this very floor, now sat beside the chief executive officer at the company's most celebrated deal in history. As the flashbulbs popped and hands signed across expensive leather folders, Rachel leaned toward Adam and whispered, Do you realize this entire company owes you now? He smiled faintly. I think you mean you owe your team. She shook her head gently. No, Adam. I owe you. That evening, long after the photographers packed up and the suits scattered, Rachel made her way to a part of the building she'd never visited, the maintenance wing. The concrete walls, the humming pipes, it felt foreign to her. She found Adam near the service elevator, folding his uniform for the night. I thought you'd gone home, she said quietly. Was just about to, he replied. She paused, then held something out. This is for you. Adam frowned slightly and took the envelope with care. Inside was a letter, official, embossed with the company seal. His eyes widened slowly as he read. Promotion, cultural liaison and translator. Full salary. Housing stipend. He looked up in disbelief. Ma'am, this can't be real. It's real, she said firmly. And well earned. He exhaled slowly, eyes still scanning the words. I don't even know what to say. Then don't, she replied softly. Just promise me one thing, stay exactly as you are. People like you, this company needs them more than another fancy degree or a new MBA. Adam nodded, and in his weathered eyes, something flickered, emotion, maybe even pride. Thank you, he said at last. Not just for the job, but for believing I could be more than the guy with the mop. Rachel's smile was gentle. No, Adam. You've always been more. I just finally saw it. The next day, the cafeteria buzzed with a rare sense of unity. Even the kitchen staff clapped when Adam walked through, his new badge proudly clipped to a clean, white-collar shirt. Emily stood beside him, proudly holding a tiny bouquet of wild daisies she had picked herself. Rachel approached with a smile. Hi, Emily. These flowers are beautiful. They're for my dad, Emily said proudly. He said you gave him a big new job. I did, Rachel replied, kneeling down to meet her eyes. But you know what? He gave me something too. Emily tilted her head. What? A reminder, Rachel said gently, that kindness still matters, especially in places where it's so often forgotten. Emily's grin widened as she reached out with one of the daisies. Then this one's for you. Rachel blinked, touched in a way she hadn't expected. She accepted the flower with quiet awe. Thank you, sweetheart. Adam watched the exchange in silence, his heart full. There was something sacred in that moment. An innocent, childlike generosity that had built a bridge between two worlds that were never meant to meet. That night, Adam stood on the rooftop terrace, the city glowing beneath him like a blanket of stars. The hum of traffic, distant laughter, the breeze, it all felt alive in a way it hadn't in years. Rachel joined him, arms folded, eyes scanning the horizon. For a while, neither said anything. You know, she finally said, I used to think being strong meant never showing weakness. But after meeting you, I think real strength is being brave enough to care. Adam looked at her and smiled softly. Caring's not weakness, man. It's what keeps us human. She nodded slowly. Maybe that's what I needed to learn all along. Adam turned his gaze to the glowing skyline. His face was tired but calm. We're all still learning, he said. Every day. A breeze swept past them, carrying faint laughter up from the streets below. It felt like a good omen. Subtle, kind, full of hope. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, Tell me something, if you could go back, change anything, would you? Adam didn't answer right away. No, he said finally. Losing her taught me to live for someone other than myself. If I hadn't walked through that pain, I wouldn't be standing here now. Rachel gave a slow smile. You're a rare kind of man, Adam Barrett. He shook his head. I'm just a father, he said, trying to be the kind of man my daughter can look up to. A week later, the company sent out a global internal email with a photo attached. Meet Adam Barrett, proof that honesty still changes lives. And when employees read the story, something shifted. People began greeting janitors by name. Security guards got thanked. Doors were held open. Small kindnesses spread like wildfire through a building once known for cold efficiency. One morning, Rachel stood by her window, watching from above as her staff joked and laughed by the coffee bar. She smiled to herself and whispered, Looks like he didn't just mop the floors, he cleaned the whole damn place. That night, Adam picked up Emily from school. She clambered up onto his shoulders, giggling wildly. Daddy, she said, you're famous now. He laughed, carrying her through the golden haze of sunset. No, sweetheart. People just finally saw you. And as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, the man who had once hidden behind a mop stepped into the light, not as a janitor, not as a soldier, but as proof that sometimes the smallest act of courage and kindness is what changes everything. If this story moved you, give it a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. And hey, share it with a friend who needs to hear it.